Avril here. Hope you're okay. We're still waiting for a few more people to come on board, and most of the speakers are here. There are a few speakers missing, but you know what? We just get on with it anyway. I've got everyone on silent for the moment, but if you do want to put anything in the chat, it'd be nice to know where everybody's from, you know, what part of the world, and just put where you live or where you come from or whatever you want to put something in the chat that just says where you are. My name's Avril, and I'll be hosting tonight, hopefully. Okay, so I'm just going to wait for a while longer to see if some of the speakers turn up. But we have the main speaker here, which is Robin Walker. But we have quite a few of the speakers here, but we're waiting for a few more. Okay, good evening, everybody. Thank you all very much for coming along. I hope you're okay and you can hear me. Can everyone hear me? Can we just confirm that everybody can hear me, please? Just say yes in the chat so I know that people can hear me. Thank you, Kaz. Great. My name is Avril Nanton, and I'm the director of a Black History and Heritage tour guiding company called Avril's Walks and Talks. And I'd just like to thank everyone for attending tonight's event. I've put everyone on mute and asked you all to switch off your videos as well. That way, you know, we don't get any disturbances. And now tonight's event is going to be recorded, and the recording will be on YouTube as soon as I can get it on there. Now, tonight's event is being put on with a very heavy heart to commemorate the passing of Dr. Runoko Rashidi, who transcended to the ancestral world just this week. May he rest in peace. Tonight, we have many speakers who will be speaking about Runoko and their links with him and his work. Some of them have worked directly with him and know him personally. Now, my personal link with Runoko is that I initially met him on his tours around the British Museum and the Petrie Museum that he used to do here in London. And I even got him to take, him on one of my tours when he was here some years ago. So that was quite nice. It was just me and him. The last time I saw him was an event in South London in Peckham, where he was given a talk about his latest book, which I bought, of course. I have many of his books in my collection. So the first person I'm going to introduce you to is the eminent historian, Robin Walker. Robin is the author of over 20 books on African history, religion, mathematics, economy, science, and music, and much, much more. His most famous book is called When We Ruled, and my name is in that book, by the way, just to let you know, because I did the proofreading for that book. And Runoko did the introduction for the book. So over to Robin. Good evening, Robin.
Good evening. Let me greet everybody out there and welcome you all to our event. Yeah, when a great man dies, Runoko Rashidi, we have to weigh up, well, what was his importance? What did he bring to the game? And there's a lot we can say. He was a historian. He was a Pan-Africanist. He was a traveler. He was a travel writer. And what he did was to introduce different sections of the Black community worldwide to themselves, to each other. See, a lot of people didn't know that we have relatives, if you like, on the Asian continent in huge numbers. And some of their Pan-African struggles for independence and power, Rashidi brought that to our consciousness. So the struggles of people in places like Papua New Guinea, the struggles of the Dravidian and Dalit populations of the Indian subcontinent. Rashidi brought these things to our consciousness and made it a part of the whole Pan-African experience. So when a great man dies, there's lots that we can do, there's lots that we can say about why was he great, why was he important. Well, what I'm going to be doing at the end of this presentation, possibly around 8:30ish, I'm going to be speaking on one area of why Dr. Rashidi was a great man, a great scholar, and what he brought to the game as a historian, what he brought to the game and how it changed the perspective of what is Black history. In other words, Black history has very, very much changed because of Dr. Rashidi's impact. And I shall be speaking on that approximately 8:30. Okay, what I'd like to do right now is to introduce the next speaker. And the next speaker is the eminent Mr. Arthur Torrington. If you can switch your video on, sir, that would be
I will indeed. And also, if Avril could make me a co-host and let me use the screen for one slide.
Arthur, you're already a co-host. All the speakers.
Oh, okay, thank you. Oh, dear me. Okay. Well, I tell you what I'll do. I'll go straight to the screen, and I'll pick up. Let me do this. And share, and let's go to right now. It's only one slide I have, and there's only one slide I need, and it's because of just this particular image and my association with Dr. Rashidi. Now,
Arthur, sorry to interrupt. Before you begin, can you tell people who you are and what you do?
Okay. Oh, well, you see, as you know, I'm usually a humble person, and I am director of the Wilderness Foundation. That's one, and the Equiana Society, and also chair of the African Heritage Forum. So I've got about 3 hats on today, although I have just one here, and I have an Equiano hat. So is that all right then? And I can proceed?
Yes, of course. Thank you.
Okay then. Now, somehow I'm trying to get this particular slide to open a bit bigger, and I am certainly struggling. But
Arthur,
anyway.
Arthur,
yeah.
Go to the bottom right hand of the screen.
Okay.
And the little square, like that's it. That's the one. Click that.
Ah, you see that? Oh, dear me. Well, I missed it. Huh? Let me do that again, and we're happy. Right, that's it then. Now, look, I actually knew Runoko very well, and I remember his coming over to the UK to give lectures. But then I had a call from him, an email and a call, and we talked, because he wanted me to organize some of these visits. And that's what I've done for a few years. And I also have to say to you now, in acknowledgement of Cindy Soso, Cindy and I worked together. Those of you would have seen me and her organizing events for Runoko. And he was very happy. I have to say that, you know, he acknowledged that I was very efficient in what I did, you know, whether it was to do with the British Museum going there and so on. So it went very well. And, you know, I looked up to him in terms of his knowledge, in terms of his association with people like Ivan van Sertima, you know, a fellow Guyanese like myself, and so on and so on. And I feel that it's very, very important for us to acknowledge him, to celebrate him, pay tributes to him. We've learned so much from him. I know that he's done a lot of work to do with Black women, Egyptian women, Black Egyptian women, going back, you know, thousands of years. He's done that kind of presentation, and you know, I was very privileged to be one, you know, to be an organizer along with Cindy and so on. Another point I want to bring you is this particular image here. I remember his going to the British Museum and talking about this image. And you know something about it? The museum and I, even before he actually did this particular presentation, we have a big argument about these images in room 4, which is the sculpture gallery. I said to the guy there, he's no longer working there. I said, because I have a big argument. Myself and Dr. Kimani Nahusi used to go and argue with them regularly. And in fact, I even took Robin at one meeting, and he will tell you that later on. And I said to him, here are these black men here, Egyptian men, pharaohs, going back before the Nubian, that sort of dynasty, I said 25 or so. And I said to him, these guys look like me, a black person. That's what I told these guys at the British Museum. And he said to me, well, these are only representations. That's kind of nonsense, I keep hearing when I go there. But it's just to show you, that's the kind of argument that we must have with big institutions, no matter how old they are. All right, and we're not afraid of actually going and arguing with them. And I'm still doing it actually with the museum. And you guys might actually hear about that. Well, maybe this year. I'm not sure. But one thing about Runoko that is important, I know that he appreciated my work on Equiano. Big appreciation in terms of Equiano, and I really like that in the sense that we all are fans. We were fans of Equiano, his work, his tenacity, his longevity, his boldness, his whatever, and that was the thing that I appreciated about Runoko. I can't say, I should say so much and too much of his talk about Egypt and other things. Robin will actually talk to you more about that later on. But I remember, him and I talking about Paris. He has a daughter in Paris, and he would come over and see the daughter because he's always traveling. And therefore, he would pop over to London, and we would check it out. I drive him around the London, check him out in his hotel. It was a good and big time, but I would leave this discussion, for later on, maybe after Robin speaks, or maybe there's so many people speaking on this platform. So what I will do, I'll leave it there, and I will introduce Michael Ohajuru.
Unfortunately, Michael's stuck in traffic, so we're going to go straight to Patrick Vernon.
Okay.
Patrick, if you could do your piece, please. You need to unmute. Thank you.
So good evening, everyone. It's really great. Thanks for Avril and Robin for organising this important event of a great historian. And I know all of us will give our various tributes and different stories. I first came across him probably about 20 years ago. He had a really extensive website on African diaspora history, many obviously based on his travels. And at the time I was doing a lot of research work. I was planning to do a PhD on J.A. Rogers, Joel Augustus Rogers, born in 1889 in 1966. And on Runoko's website, he had really lots of information about J.A. Rogers, some stuff I had already and some additional information I wasn't aware of. And I remember dropping an email, I dropped an email, and we were in regular email correspondence about J.A. Rogers and other black historians. And then when he came over to the UK, I think I met him on a couple of occasions, and we actually developed those conversations in more detail. I'm sure Robin's going to give a real detailed analysis of his life work, but I like to put my contribution around that historical context in terms of the work that he did and his achievements. He was, I would call him, organic black intellectual historian. He follows from a long line of similar historians of that period, the likes of late Dr. Ben, a whole range of historians that basically had to be self-taught and do their own journey and discovery of basically black history, not just in America but internationally, and particular links with Kemet. But Rashid took it to a state level, and in many ways he was very similar to J.A. Rogers. So Runoko was self-published. He did a lot of self-publishing. I know some of us here are self-publishers, and anyway, Robin has probably taken up to the next level too. But he wrote extensively, and he self-published a whole range of books and pamphlets. He didn't have a formal a professorship or academic situation, but he used his knowledge and his experience that was just as great as other well-known African-American historians with all the tenures and all the resources they have at their disposal, which he didn't have, but he had to raise money himself. Lots of the stuff he self-financed as well. The other thing about him, which was very similar to the likes of J. Rogers, was travel. And I don't know how many countries he traveled in his life, but it's probably all of us times 10. He traveled extensively, and very similar to J. Rogers, who traveled also extensively. The only difference is J. Rogers didn't go as far as Asia to do his and India to do his research work, basically, which obviously Runoko did. But what's really important, everyone, his travelogue, and I think one of the last books he did, and I don't know if it still will be available, and if not, you better get a copy before it's completely out of print. Was his last book was a photographic journal of his travels, essentially around the world, which is really, really important, I think. I can't remember the full title, but please get a copy of that book. But the way he traveled and the way he engaged with diaspora people in India, obviously in the Caribbean, even with us here in the UK, with an open mind to learn about our experiences, but also to share information around history and heritage was also important as well. And the final thing about him, which I got to know about, was his capacity to absorb information. You know, obviously now we're so used to looking at our Kindles and iPhones for information, but he just had everything in his head. He could automatically share stuff that he'd done or other people had done as well. And so that is a really important contribution. He's up in the annals, personally speaking, of all the great African-American historians, John H. Clark, and many others. And he's probably a last of a generation who was around during the civil rights movement and what was happening around the establishment of African American History Month, and deliberately tried to create his own path to educate and inform not just people in America, but people around the world. And I think it'd be a fitting tribute if some university somewhere, whether it's in the USA or in the Caribbean or Africa or here in the UK, to create some permanent scholarship of his research work, of diaspora histories and diaspora connections around the world. I salute him. He, you know, in many ways, some of his techniques and research and his analysis work has influenced quite a few of us in the UK around community stories, and also the advocacy of promoting our histories, often in adversity and challenge as well. So he is a scholar, a giant, and I hope that, particularly in America, they give him the recognition he deserves, which I'm not quite sure if that will be the case, but I hope in America they do. But the very fact that we've done this online event tonight within a few days of him passing demonstrates our commitment and our love to him and respect to him as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Right, now I'm going to call upon Danny Thompson to talk. Danny, if you'd like to introduce yourself, say who you are and what you do, and put your camera on. And unmute. Danny, you need to unmute. Danny, you need to unmute. Right, hold on. We're just trying to sort out Danny. Right, Danny, you should be able to unmute now.
Hi, you can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. And we
All
can
right, sorry. Yeah, I was trying to say that it was saying that you had to unmute me.
No, it's all right. I'll
Well,
make you co-host so you can unmute yourself now.
Oh,
Danny,
okay.
introduce yourself and tell everybody who you are, what you do, and what your links are with Mr. Richie.
Okay. Hi, I'm Danny Thompson. What do I do? I'm a musician, history teacher. Currently doing a master's degree African history and history of the African diaspora. Yeah, that's enough about me. I just wanted to say hotep to everyone. And thanks to Avril and Robin for putting this together, because there's an African proverb: when an elder dies, we lose a library. I think with the passing of brother Runoko Rashidi, we've lost an entire museum. I understand, and it's kind of our duty to preserve his works and to keep that knowledge flowing. So I just want to start off by saying that. Yeah, I didn't know him personally, although I did engage with him at his talks. I remember talks he did at British Museum. I remember a talk he did on African women, African female rulers in Kemet. He did that at the Docklands. And what I really appreciated with Brother Runoko was just, I would approach him after his talk and you know, ask him questions, and he would actually take time and respond, which isn't the case with all our scholars. Some scholars, they can be kind of unapproachable, and just to have that exchange with him kind of was very empowering for me. One thing I remember in particular that I want to note is I published my first book, was about 3 years ago now, African Literary Heritage. And Brother Runoko was doing a talk at CSCP, and I kind of ambushed him because I'd finished the first draft, and I kind of ambushed him and could you look at my draft? Could you look at my draft? And he'd been running late, so you know, things were in a hurry, but he still made time to just take 10 minutes to run through it, gave me some positive feedback, and just let me know that I was on the right path. And as a student, you need those moments of encouragement, of empowerment. I just want to say a couple of things about his work. Yeah, his work on us, our presence in Middle East, Suma, well, Iraq, Iran, India, Cambodia, Indonesia, all of that period was magnificent. You know, he's done, I think he and Van Sertima really kind of let us know that we've left our footprints across this planet, and those footprints are still there to be seen. I know Patrick referred to his photo, his being a traveler and his being a photo. What was great about him is that he didn't just speak it, he provided proof, absolute proof, scientific proof, photographic proof. And it just kind of increased our greatness, absolutely increased our greatness. So as I said, I don't really have a lot to say. I just wanted to make that contribution. And yeah, rest in paradise, my brother. Thank you, Avril.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you very much. Okay, our next speaker is a gentleman called Sola Story. And Sola, if you'd like to come to do whatever you do and tell us who you are and what you do. I'll ask you to unmute and make you a co-host. There you go. Right, you're a co-host, so you can now unmute yourself. Sola?
There we go. Yeah, can you hear me now?
Good evening. Hello. We can see
Good
you.
evening.
Good
Evening. And greetings, people.
Yes. Sola, can you do me a favor, please? Can you tell everybody who you are, what you do, and what your links are to Rashidi?
I certainly can. So my name is Sola Story, and I suppose the clue is in the name, in that I'm a storyteller. I suppose I'm a griot, in that I practice the art of oral storytelling, as well as being an author. But I have certainly had much more exposure, coverage, and experience telling oral stories. And I've always included the knowledge that I have of African history in my stories. And this is where brother and now ancestor Runoko Rashidi has been so important to me, because as brother Danny was just saying, the evidence that he provided for our ascendancy and primacy, not only on the African continent, but on all the continents really, was so laden with proof that it enabled me to actually not only disseminate this information in story form, but actually it had an impact on me in terms of liberating me from a sense of poor self-esteem relating to what have we done? What have we Africans actually done? Have we always been in this situation? And yes, we say that we were the rulers of Kemet and etc. But where is the proof? And people like him, Van Sertima, Diop, they were all part of the evolution of me, I would say, from somebody who made tentative statements to somebody who was able to make statements with strength and with power. And for me, the Runoko Rashidi will always have a place in my heart. I didn't know him personally. I was at lectures that he gave, but I didn't actually meet him other than to say well done and thank you. But in my psyche and in the information I'm able to share with other people, he has had a seminal influence in that. And for me specifically, with the information that he gave us on the Dravidian civilizations, Indus, Kush, and the way in which our culture became co-opted by the Asian Vedic system, and without reference to us, apart from if we know where to look. And our father brother gave us the keys to know where to look. So yeah, that's what the brother meant to me. And I wanted to make a small request, which is one of the things I and we tend to do when somebody passes on is to drum for them. So my request is, if you will allow me to drum for a brother Runoko Rashidi in this moment, if that's acceptable.
Yes, that's
on
fine.
This platform.
Please do.
That's fine. Okay, so I'm gonna just touch the drum for my brother, father Runoko Rashidi. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sola. That's much appreciated. Thank you. I'm going to talk, we're going to have Sandra Agard on next. And thank you, Sola. If you'd like to turn off your camera and put yourself on mute, that would be great. And we move on to Sandra Agard. And Sandra, if you could possibly tell us who you are and what you do and what your links are to Runoko Rashidi. Thank you.
Thank you, Avril. Good evening, everyone. My name is Sandra Agard, and I'm a storyteller and writer, a literature consultant, a book doctor, and I'm currently working at the British Library as a learning facilitator for schools. My link is one of history. And this week, it's been a really sad time, really. We've lost Dr. Runoko, and we've also lost this week Jean Binta Breeze, and a couple of weeks ago we lost Menelik Shabazz. And what I wanted to do was to read a poem, and I think the poem I have chosen is by Maya Angelou, and it's called When Great Trees Fall. When great trees fall, rocks on distant hills shudder, lions hunker down in tall grasses, and even elephants lumber after safety. When great trees fall, in forests small things recoil into silence, their senses eroded beyond fear. When great souls die, the air around us becomes light, rare, sterile. We breathe briefly, our eyes briefly see with a hurtful clarity. Our memories suddenly sharpen, examines, gnaws on kind words, unsaid, promised walks, never taken. Great souls die, and our reality bound to them takes leave of us. Our souls dependent upon their nutrients now shrink, wizened. Our minds formed and informed by their radiance fall away. We are not so much maddened as reduced to the unutterable ignorance of dark, cold caves. And when great souls die, after a period, a brief peace blooms, slowly and always irregular. Spaces fall with a kind of soothing electric vibration, our senses restored, never to be the same, whispered to us. They existed. They existed. We can be and be better, for they existed. And I think that's what's really important, as Dr. Maya Angelou says there, for they existed. We must remember that great legacies that have been left for us by this great historian who yes, maybe didn't have that formal education where you go to a university, etc., but thought it vital, important to gather our stories, to gather our histories, and our legacy and his legacy must be to continue his work, because the story never ends. And we know there are so many hidden stories, and he was a story maker, he was a history maker, and we need to go forth and discover and find out for our children's children and for generations to come all those hidden stories. And although he is a great tree that has fallen, we must continue, and it's imperative that we do. He's passed on to us the baton, so to speak, and we have to continue the race. This week marks a sad, sad time for us. But we are a people who still rise. We are a people who still continue. We are a people that, despite everything that is put upon us, we have greatness within us. And he has shown us that greatness. He's lit that candle. He's lit that torch. As I said, he's handed us the baton, and we must continue his story. Ashe, Ashe, Ashe. Give thanks and praise. Thank you.
Ashe, Sandra, thank you very much. Now I'm going to hand over to Jacinth Martin, who will tell you who she is and what her links are with Runoko. So Jacinth, if you'd like to put your camera on, please.
Sorry about that. Good evening, everyone. Thank you first to Avril and Robin for putting this together at such short notice. This is a really great event. My name is Jacinth Martin, and I'm the project manager of one of the oldest supplementary schools here in Croydon. And it's been a really sad week from when Robin gave me the call in the morning and told me about Runoko. I was, quite distressed, and I'm still quite upset about it. So I thought, instead of talking about, how I got to know him and everything, I thought I'll put it in the form of a poem, which hopefully should encapsulate everything about the relationship of Runoko Rashidi with CSCP and myself. So here goes, and hope you enjoy it. Runoko Rashidi, a giant amongst men. Runoko Rashidi always venerated the ancient African great women. Runoko Rashidi, a hero to the cities. Runoko Rashidi, your Wikipedia page doesn't give you justice. Runoko Rashidi, you have joined the ancestors far too soon. Runoko Rashidi, you're in good company with Ivan, John, Yusuf, and Chancellor in the History Saloon. Runoko Rashidi, you always lectured and preached about knowledge of self. Runoko Rashidi, you sought out and highlighted our stolen artifacts in the world's museums. Runoko Rashidi, thank you for gracing us in Croydon many, many times. Runoko Rashidi, your book launches at CSCP made the headlines. Runoko Rashidi, thank you for asking me to help you find the portrait of Queen Charlotte. Runoko Rashidi, that picture you included in your book, Black Star, the African Presence in Early Europe. Runoko Rashidi, my and CSCP's only regret, Runoko Rashidi, is that we never got to tour with you in Kemet. Runoko Rashidi, to your family, we thank them for allowing us to share time with this great man. Runoko Rashidi, a 21st century African American historian. Ashe. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacinth. That was lovely. Thank you very much. And now we have a gentleman called Michael Ohajuru. Michael, if you'd like to switch on your camera and your sound and tell us who you are and your link to Runoko, please.
Hi, my name is Michael Ohajuru. I run tours of the Black presence
in the art and the galleries in London. And I had the pleasure, the great pleasure of going on a tour with this great man. And, you know, he was, what was he? He was a lecturer, a communicator, historian, anthropologist, a motivator, but above all, he was a historian. And I'd just like to open with a quote of his. History is a light that illuminates the past and a key that unlocks the door to the future. And that was something that, you know, when I went on these tours with him at the British Museum, I was really moved by, because he was making connections. He was relating to people, and he was making connections that for me were really special, because a lot of history I study, starts with Greece and moves forward. He said, we have to look at Egypt. The Greeks didn't do it alone. And he made that connection with the Greeks. And he made the civilization wasn't founded on the Greeks. And there's a quote I use often in my talks about the Negro from Cedric Robinson. He talks about the Negro has no country, no civilization, no cultures, no religions, no history, no place, and finally no humanity. That was the Negro. And what Runoko did, he debunked that. He showed the nonsense about the Negro. He gave Black people, Africans, he told us the countries we're in, he gave us all the civilizations we created, the cultures we were involved with, and he gave us a history. And most importantly of all, he gave us humanity. And I'm not from a personal basis. He was just a genuine warm man who wanted to share his passion and his love of Black people and how we were not Negroes. We had a humanity, we had a culture that related to the world, not just Africa, because he talks about the Middle East as Eastern Africa. He talks about people moving east out of the Middle East and then north into Europe. How there are Africans everywhere. And for me, when I went around that tour of the British Museum with them, he opened my eyes, you know, because when I do my tours, I often show people works that they've seen many times, but not seen the Black presence. And they say, Michael, wow, I never noticed that before. Well, Runoko did that for me in the British Museum in spades. He did it just small pieces, which he would have walked past. He said, whoa, look at this. And you see a little Black boy. Or a seminal work for me, if you call my tours, is Andromeda. He showed me this Andromeda pot. And Andromeda was the daughter of the king and queen of Ethiopia. Often portrayed as Black, but she was often portrayed as white, rather. She was a Black woman. She came from the land of Ethiopia, the land of burnt faces. And he exposed their presence, and he made that connections, and he made history for me real and relevant. You know, that this idea of history shedding a light on the past, showing that we Black people, we African people of African descent, have a history. We have a dignity, a humanity, which he made manifest. He didn't have to make it up. He showed it in so many different ways in so many countries as he traveled. And I'd like to think, well, it's a fact. And the two names have been mentioned many times. He's in that long tradition of African scholarship, of J. Rogers, Ivan Sentiment. He knew these people. He knew Ivan. He's part of that link. And I would like, I hope this doesn't embarrass Robin, but I'd like to see him as part of that chain that's writing Black African history and making it real and relevant today. And as Runoko said, history is a light that illuminates the past and locks the door to the future, giving us Black African people humanity. So he's gone, but he lives on. His work lives on. It still motivates me. I know there are many people around the world that his work will live on and motivate for generations to come. So I'll miss him. Yes, we'll miss him. I would have loved to have gone on one of his Kenya tours. Sadly, never happened. But his books are there. His scholarship is there to be shared and enjoyed. So thank you, Runoko. Thank you. Ashe, ashe, ashe. And I thank Robin and Avril for giving me this opportunity to celebrate this great man, a great man, truly great man. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. We're actually going to go now back to Sola, who's going to tell us a story So Michael, if you'd like to put yourself on mute and switch off your video, and Sola, if you'd like to come and tell us your story that you wanted to tell, put yourself on, you should be able to take yourself off mute. Yeah?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you very much.
Excellent, thank you. So, yes, people, I wanted to tell this story because it's a metaphor, actually, for what Michael was just saying, really. And I'll say a little bit about the metaphor at the end of it. Ordinarily, the stories that I tell are interactive, but because we're all on mute, I would just trust that we're all going along with the things that I say. So I'll begin, and I'm going to go quite quickly, just in the interest of time. So, in a place far from here, but near to there, a man walked through a farm. And on the farm, there were lots and lots of chickens doing what chickens do. Like chickens. And this man, he walked through the farm and then he saw a chicken that was very strange. You see, this chicken made him stop and stare. Huh? I don't believe it. The chicken was huge. But when he looked more closely, he saw that the chicken was not a chicken at all. It was an eagle, but it was going around, going like a chicken. So the man said, I'm going to teach this eagle how to fly. And he picked the eagle up and he climbed to the top of a barn, whereupon he held the eagle up on his arm. So hold the eagle up on your arm like this. I'm just trusting that you're doing this. Pauline Mullings and Seymour Marshall, whose names I can see there, and everybody else, Nubian Nijis books. So he held the eagle up on his arm and he said, behold yourself and fly. And the eagle flapped to the ground going like a chicken. He climbed back down, picked up the eagle again, climbed to the top of a tall tree. And at the top of the tall tree, he held the eagle up on his arm. So hold the eagle up on your arm. And he said, behold yourself and fly. And he threw the eagle high in the air. And the eagle spread her wings and flapped to the ground going, like a chicken. This time he climbed down. He said, you are going to fly. Watch me. And he carried the eagle to the top of a mountain. And at the top of the mountain, the eagle looked down and far, far, far below could see the silver ribbon of a river winding through the land, could smell the scents of the earth, could see in minute detail, sharp clarity, the vision that she had been blessed with, but which she had never utilized before. And a feeling entered the eagle's heart. She had never been that high before. And the man held the eagle up on his arm. And he said, let's say together, behold yourself and fly. And the eagle spread her wings. And she began to soar and swoop, because she at last realized that she was an eagle and not a chicken. So that's the end of that story. And it's very pertinent to what we're discussing today, because Runoko Rashidi helped us all to understand that we were not Negroes. We were not Black people or niggers, as we were called in insulting ways. No, far from it. We were and always have been our ancestors. The genetics of our ancestors are manifest in us today, which means that the greatness that they achieved, that the rarefied stratospheres that they reached intellectually, spiritually, materially are within us, and we have that same capacity. So when we run about shooting each other, cussing each other, destroying our organizations, and not actually fulfilling our destinies, we behave like the chicken, looking at the ground and grubbing for the leavings of those who we consider to be our betters. But the moment we know ourselves, the scales fall from our eyes. We realize that we actually have wings and we are able to fly in truth as we always did. And I want to tell that story in tribute to one who gave my mind wings. Hashima, and thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Shola. A lovely story. Okay, right. Well, now it's my turn just to read through some of the things that have been put in the chat. So let's just start with a lovely one from Andrew. Andrew says, Brother Runoko Rashidi was a great historian. His extensive catalogue of pictures brought to life all the indigenous African people living all over the world in places you would not even imagine. You and your work will be sorely missed. May your spirit rest in great power. One love, my brother. And that's really lovely. That's really, really nice. And then we have, we got people from the Netherlands. Thank you, AK. Thank you very much for coming on board. Yvonne says, Dr. Rashidi was very approachable at his lectures and had a great sense of humor. As well as a great historian, he was a great human being. May he rest in power. Then we have, if anyone would like to buy some books on written by Dr. Runoko Rashidi, they can get them from Nubian Nagist Books. And she has many of his books for sale. They're in the chat, so you can look her up. It's Nubian Nagist Books. AK said, I was with Runoko Rashidi in the Africa Museum in Tervuren, BE, is that Belgium? I don't know, in 2019. It was impressive, so different than with a regular mainstream guide because of his specific knowledge. And Brian says, Ashe, Ashe, Ashe. That's right. Somebody loved the drumming as well and the poetry. That's fantastic. Really enjoying the evening. It's not a long evening. It's just an evening to commemorate and to give thanks and to pay tribute. So we're not going to be here all night. Don't worry, you're not going to be on this platform all night, folks. Now, I'm going to pass over to Robin Walker, and Robin is going to give a 30-minute presentation about Runoko. So Robin, if you could put your camera on and if you could unmute yourself, that'd be fantastic. Thank you.
Okay, the presentation is called How Rashidi Changed the Game. First of all, can I check, can I be heard? Avril, can I get some feedback?
Yes, we can all hear you, Robin. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. How Rashidi changed the game. In other words, why is he an important historian? What did he change? How did our understanding of Black history change because of him? So what did he write? Well, there are a series of books that he wrote, and I'm going to talk about the most important ones in how they changed the perspective on Black history. His main impact is he changed the scope of Black history. The scope means how big is that history? And he included for the first time Black history in Asia. He added to our knowledge of Black history in ancient Egypt, and he added to our knowledge of Black history elsewhere. And I'm going to show you how his impact changed how we see Black history. You see, mainstream scholars, before the impact of Rashidi, when they were looking at ancient Africa,
the area that's shaded a little bit darker, where you can see Mauritania, Mali, Niger, Chad, Sudan, Eritrea, that and the south is Black history. Anything north of that had nothing to do with Black people. Anything in the Middle East had nothing to do with Black people. Anything outside of that border of sub-Saharan Africa had nothing to do with Black people. So where is this gentleman from? This is an image from one of Rashidi's books. And whenever I've done this in class, because I use this as teaching material, most people think, okay, this person's from Africa. Which part of Africa? And then you find out this gentleman is actually from the Philippines, and he represents indigenous, original, Aboriginal Filipinos. Now, do you think there'd be a history here? Where's these people from? Here we have a sculpture of a male. This is about 650 AD. Here's another sculpture from the same time period of a female, 650 AD. Where are these people from? And then you find out they're actually from the Far East and represent ancient Black populations, civilized Black populations, sculpture producing Black populations in the very Far East. And that blows most people's minds. What do you mean Black civilizations in the Far East? Now, this is a map that I had drawn, but I based it on one that Rashidi produced. And you can see Egypt and Tarseti, which is in East Africa. And then we've got Phoenicia in the Middle East, Arabia Felix, Sumer, where Iraq is today, Elam, where Iran is today, the Indus Valley, which is where Pakistan and the western part of India is today. And did you know this history, these histories have something to do with us? In fact, they have rather a lot to do with us. Again, some of the research that Dr. Rashidi did appeared in his book, African Star Over Asia, The Black Presence in the East. And Rashidi pointed out Aboriginal populations. These two gentlemen, if you look at the person on the right, you can see he's got short, tightly curled hair. Look at the person on the left, the person's got loosely coiled hair. But look at his jawline. You can see his jaw's very far forward. That is a typical African trait. And these two gentlemen represent some of the oldest populations in Arabia. And this gentleman with the somewhat bushy hair, this represents an indigenous person in India. And if you were to trim the hair a little bit, you could pass him off from somebody in East Africa quite easily. Now, what has been found in Arabia? Here is an ancient Arab monument, and it appears in a book by an American explorer. And the American explorer took the photograph and added the caption, "Strange Negroid head cut into the rock at one structure, the only figure represented anywhere." And then Rashidi's people reproduced the figure so that we can get a close-up on this broad, flat, African type face in ancient Arabia. And we've just been told this is the only figure represented anywhere. Is he representative of the inhabitants? Well, he has to be. Now, moving to what is today the Israel, Palestine, Lebanon region. There was a civilization called Phoenicia. The people were known as the Phoenicians. And this is a Phoenician, and you can see he's dressed a little bit like an ancient Egyptian. And if you look at the lower part of the face, it's very far forward, just like the Black Arab we've just seen. That's a trait called subnasal prognatism. You can see that this person is thick-lipped as well. Does it mean then that the people of Phoenicia used to look like that? Then, of course, in the same region, you have the kingdom of Judea, the kingdom of the ancient Jews. And this piece of work represents the city of Lachish, one of the capitals of the kingdom of Judea. And as you can see, they are woolly haired with short, tight curls, woolly beards, flat noses. That's not what we would expect a Jewish population to look like. Or is it that we didn't know our history? And again, these are the kinds of information that Rashidi is making available. The photographs I'm using are all his. These are his findings. Moving to Iran, these are ancient Elamites, a brilliant civilization in the most ancient part of Iran, a civilization, literate civilization, a monument building civilization. And look at the inhabitants. Now, if I was to show you those images and you were to guess where they were, you definitely say Africa. Indus Valley, this is where Pakistan and Western India is today. The most famous sculpture to be discovered in the ancient Indus Valley is this one here. It is known as the Bronze Woman. And if you look at the face, if you look at the attitude, you know, the hand on the hip. In other words, Black women haven't changed very much in 3,500 years or whenever it was that this was sculpted. Again, Rashidi was to bring this to the attention of the Black community. Now, how does the Black factor change the game? Here is an image of the Buddha. Now, if you look at that face, doesn't that look a little bit like African-American MC Chuck D? And if we turn it to the side, we can appreciate the detail of the hair. Now, as you know, nobody in the Far East has got tightly curled hair like that. Clearly, Africoid is the term that Rashidi would use. Now, that is the Buddha. Now, how does that change the history of religion? You see, we have been taught that when it comes to the issue of religion, gods, goddesses, the prophets, these have all got nothing to do with Black people and everything to do with Abraham and his descendants. Or if it's the Far East, that's definitely got nothing to do with Black people. How do we explain this image of the Buddha? Now, one thing you could say is, but Robin, how do we know that it's it's not unique? Maybe it's a one-off. Well, let's look at some other images. Again, this is another photograph of the Buddha presented by Rashidi. Rashidi found these images through travel. He found these images through going to the museums and making sure that these things got snapped. Are there any more? Again, these are all images published or edited for publication by Runoko Rashidi. And check this one out. Does it get tougher than that? So when it comes to then the origin and evolution of religion, we are in that story and not in places that you would necessarily expect. Now, this is my research now. This isn't Rashidi's, but it's connected. And I think Rashidi would approve of me showing the most famous Bangladeshi woman in the United Kingdom. And there she is on the left. And if you didn't know she was Bangladeshi, if I said she was East African, I believe I could smuggle her into East Africa and everyone would assume she's just another one of us. Now, the fact that there are populations looking like this in places like India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, people need to know that people look like this and their history is connected to our history and their heritage is connected to our heritage. And Rashidi was the person that made the connections. Now, how did Rashidi change the game? Ancient Egypt. Now, Rashidi wrote a book called Uncovering the African Past, the Ivan van Sertima papers. And what this was to do with, the great Guyanese professor, Ivan van Sertima, commissioned Rashidi to do research on the Middle Kingdom of ancient Egypt. The Middle Kingdom is Dynasty 11 and Dynasty 12. And so Rashidi did that research and it is superb scholarship. And then he also did a series of photographic essays to hammer home the points. And I'm going to show you some of the photographic data that Rashidi came up with. Okay, the Middle Kingdom. The very first king of the ancient Egyptian Middle Kingdom, a pharaoh of the 11th ruling dynasty. His name was Mentuhotep II, and this is a photograph that Rashidi took from the Cairo Museum of the first pharaoh of the Middle Kingdom. And from the 12th ruling dynasty, Rashidi took this photo of the pharaoh's name is Amenemhet II, and this is in the Louvre Museum. Are we enjoying the face? Are we looking at the height of those cheekbones? I mean, I'm looking at myself in the camera. My cheekbones aren't representing like that. Amenemhet III. Now you can see this one's been beaten up somewhat, and you could imagine the hostility that certain scholars came across when they first discovered this portrait. But Amenemhet III, is that not a tough image? The same pharaoh again, Amenemhet III. Again, these are all photographs by Runoko Rashidi. Senusret II, also from the 12th ruling dynasty. And are we enjoying that portrait? Now, you see, a lot of people don't get to see images of ancient Egyptians looking like this because the scholars don't tend to reproduce the portraits. But Rashidi is very, very much about, you need to show these kinds of imageries. Okay, let's look at some of the ladies from the Middle Kingdom. Now you can see this one is wearing a wig, but get a load of that face. Is that not exquisite? Is not the modeling beautiful? Now, it wasn't just the Middle Kingdom that Rashidi was interested in. He also documented other aspects of ancient Egyptian history. This is Pharaoh Namer. Some people call him Mena, some people call him Menes. And catalog number UC, which means University College 15989. And this is in the Petrie Museum of Egyptian Archaeology. These photographs are taken by, again, Runoko Rashidi. And this gentleman has a passing resemblance to Mike Tyson. And this is Egypt's first pharaoh of the first ruling dynasty. And yeah, Rashidi published this image many, many times because people need to see the first pharaoh of the first ruling dynasty. From the 4th dynasty, Pharaoh Jedefra, again, get a load of those cheekbones right there. Also from the 4th dynasty, this is a reserve head of a princess from the 4th dynasty. And is that not exquisite? Is the modeling not exquisite? From ancient Egypt's New Kingdom, the New Kingdom is dynasties 18, 19, and 20. Again, these are images that Rashidi found in his research of Ahmose Nefertari, the very first queen of the New Kingdom period, the very first queen of the 18th ruling dynasty. This is Queen Nefertiti. Now, many of us have seen the Berlin bust forgery pretending to be Nefertiti, but this is actually the real deal. And of course, Rashidi captured it. And then Rashidi posted on his Facebook page another image of Nefertiti. And you can see it's her torso, and you can see it from the side. And those of you that remember the rapper Sir Mix-a-Lot did a tune called Baby Got Back. Yes, you can see that Nefertiti got back. And again, a lot of people don't see these images because we've never seen an image of her proper African body, proper African face. This is Ramses II. Again, not the typical depictions that you see. And Rashidi made it clear that these are the kinds of images that need to be made available in the Black community. Another thing that Rashidi was very, very good at was comparing ancient art with modern people. And can we learn from doing this? Can we learn by comparing, for example, ancient Egyptian hair with those of modern populations? Okay, the sculpture on the far left and the far right is Lady Kerendouank, and she is the mother of the famous Imhotep. And if you look at her hair, one wonders, well, what would that look like on a modern person? And in some parts of East Africa, they've still got hairstyles like that. And Rashidi would sometimes teach by showing the ancient sculpture of Kerendouank and the modern East African. So you can see, you know, the continuity. So if you want to know what that ancient hairstyle looks like, the modern lady is modeling that hairstyle. Okay, if you look at the ancient Egyptian sculpture on the left, and again a modern East African on the right, again we can see what that hairstyle would look like. And of course, you can't do this with anything other than African hair. Here's another example. The person on the left is from ancient Egypt. The person on the right is from modern East Africa. Again, you can see the similarity in hairstyles. The person on the left is supporting a particular shape of fro, and the gentlemen on the right are the modern version of that same fro. So you can map ancient Egyptian hair with various East African hairstyles. And then if you then look at the bigger picture, you can map ancient Egyptian hair against Central African hairstyles. But this research is Rashidi. This is Rashidi bringing new research. So in other words, this is not what other scholars have said. This is what Rashidi is bringing to the game. So how did Rashidi change the game elsewhere? Well, there was a book called African Presence in Early Europe, and I was invited to write the preface or forward, I can't remember, to that book. And it's a really, really powerful book, because what it does is it maps the history of Black people in Europe from the ancient world through the Moors, through the post-slavery kind of periods, bringing the story of, you know, telling quite a big story of Black achievement in Europe. And you can see Rashidi is there with Emmanuel Ma, and raising the question, where's this woman from? Now you can see that she is dressed in her silver and finery. And this woman is what the scholars call a Berber. And the Berbers were the original population of North Africa. Now there are very pale-skinned Berbers, but there are also black ones as well. And the black ones never get shine, because the further back in history you go, the blacker the Berbers get. Until we get to the beginnings of Berber origins, they were fully black. And so what it means then is the Moorish history in Spain, where they're building monuments like La Mezquita in Cordova, the Medinet El Zahra Palace. A lot of this history is Negro history, Black history, African history. But unless you know that there are indeed Berbers who look like this, you don't know that history's got anything to do with us. Now, Rashidi, as everyone knows, was a great traveler, and he took this photograph in Tunisia, North Africa, a place that supposedly doesn't have any Black people. And Rashidi noticed that this Tunisian gentleman happens to look just like him. Now, one could imagine the shock that you're going to a country that supposedly doesn't have any Black people, and not only are there Black people, and they are the indigenes, the original inhabitants, but one of them ends up looking just like you. Let that sink in, y'all. Where else? Now, the research on the African presence in Central America is largely the research of Dr. Rashidi's mentor, Professor Ivan van Sertima. But Rashidi got there, and as he says in this caption, I do not believe it is possible to not see Africa in these Olmec artifacts. I agree. And so Rashidi has a policy that if anyone wants to doubt whether or not these are depictions of Africans, he shows the pictures and keep it moving. Because there is no way you're going to get non-African populations. There's 20 of these Olmec heads, and all 20 just happen to look like Africans. Powerful. And so Rashidi even led tours to Central America to visit the museums and to visit the artifacts to show people that there is indeed an African presence here too. And this is a very powerful chapter of Black people in the history of the Americas. And we need to embrace that history and heritage, showing that Black history is much, much bigger than just sub-Saharan Africa. No disrespect to sub-Saharan Africa, no disrespect to its history and heritage, but Black history is more than that. We are a major part of all history when it comes to the planet Earth. We have, in other words, when we put the kinds of findings that Rashidi put into the game, the scope of Black history is enlarged massively. Okay, check that one out. Are we enjoying that sculpture? All right then, now concluding memory from me and my team. Now you can see we managed to, what's the word, photo bomb this photo. And you can see you've got me, you've got Anthony Vaughan, you've got Vinica Marshall, you've got Paula Perry, and then we are in the picture with the great man, and that becomes a concluding memory from me and the concluding memory from us. All right, thank you very much. Let me pass back to Avril Nanton. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Okay, hello people. Oh, let me put my light on if you can't see me. There you go. Thank you very much. That was absolutely fantastic. Did everybody enjoy that? I hope so. Now, I'm going to open the floor to anyone who would like to say something about their relationship with Runoko Rashidi. If you would like to say something, please put your hand up. Or Arthur, did you want to say something?
Yeah, just to add to Robin, just to say something about Rashidi in terms of his activism. Now, I don't know whether he told you, Robin, but he told me that he was banned from India. And that has never been raised again in any big way. And obviously, it's all because of his saying, you know, the history of India, Indus Valley, etc. And I heard him, you know, talk to me twice on that one, you know, taking him around in the car. And another thing as well, he actually possibly visited almost every museum in Europe. He always has a camera. That's the thing. And he would say to me, well, he wants to go and do this particular photograph. In fact, he even wanted to go down to Exeter to photograph a painting of Equiano. So in that sense, Robin, I was just thinking whether you and he have had any kind of discussion on those controversial bits. Robin.
Yeah, I'm aware of him being banned from India because he was accused of politicizing the untouchables and hooking them up to the rest of the Pan-African world. And a lot of light-skinned Hindus didn't like that because the light-skinned Hindus, just as we have racial problems in the West, anti-Black racism is a big issue in India. And Rashidi exposed that stuff, and a lot of light-skinned Hindus didn't like it. So yes, he was certainly banned, but he was right to do what he did, and big up to Rashidi, and big up to the untouchables in India that hosted him and, you know, gave him the platform in India that was a major link in Pan-Africanism because it hooked the untouchables of India into the rest of the Pan-African world. And Rashidi is responsible for that.
Very, very important. Avril.
Thank you, Arthur. We have someone who would like to speak about Runoko. His name is Prophet Jabi. If you would like to unmute and say your piece. Can you, hello, Prophet?
Okay, blessings,
Yes.
blessings.
Can I ask you please to first of all introduce yourself, who you are, and what your link is to Runoko?
My name, they call me Prophet Jabi. My name is actually Bobby Forrester. Yeah. I know Runoko for about almost 20 years, and you know, I got to know him as a brethren, you know, on a level, you know, not just as a historian, but as a brethren, because Runoko was a no-nonsense type of person, you know. He didn't mince his words, you know. He was directly a race-first man, you know, an activist. He didn't just want to recall dates and things like that. He wanted to make sure that anybody who was, you know, privy to come to his presentations, that they do something with the information that he's able to present them, you know, and to make a difference for us as Africans in the world, you know. So he was very, he took activism very at the forefront of his life, you know. He always said a picture speaks 1,000 words, and he said it was very important that, you know, that we take it to the school levels, you know. So I and Runoko, in a lot of his early presentations, we toured schools, you know. Romelda Williams, she was also a part of that team, you know, on organizing it. And Robin, he told me that he has you up with the greats. He respected you, you know. They don't always agree on everything, but he said he respected Robin Walker as one of the great scholars, you know.
Yeah, Prophet, that's fantastic.
You
know, Prophet,
yeah.
Can I just say, we do have the wonderful Romelda online here at this event.
Right. Yeah, and he spoke of the Saturday school, which you know, in Croydon, that they're doing the work that they're doing is tremendous, you know. And you know what Robin was doing down there for the young people, also down there, not only for the young people but for all ages, you know. So that obviously that organization is very instrumental within the community, you know. I mean, I live in the US, and you know, me and Runoko linked up like in Brooklyn also, sat down and spoke. He talked about his daughter, you know. He loved he actually adored his daughter, loved her so much, you know. So on that level, that, you know, me and Runoko, he stayed with me when he came to. He never stayed in no hotel. He'd come to my house and we would sit down there. He would just pitch up the slides. You know, those days he was sticking up slides, you know. And I said, you got to turn over to PowerPoint, you know. And it was quite hard for him to change over, you know. But he said pictures was just, you know, that he was so comfortable with his slides. Like Arthur said, that he was a cameraman, you know. He always watched with the camera. Anywhere he knew that there was a picture of an African, he wanted that shot, you know. He spoke about the picture of the Black Christ in Cairo and how he obtained that picture there, you know. And you know, it's so much about the man, you know. But as I said, he never minced his words. We done presentation with young people where he said, listen, Jabi, I need to tell these young people as it is. I need to get it across. And he was so charismatic with it because he empowered, how he delivered his sessions, right? His presentation was, you know, it was second to none. He got people out of their chair, you know. People was really empowered how he pitched it, how he put it across. You know, he went onto people's levels, you know. That's why he packed auditoriums, because of how he delivered it. You know, and being that race first man, it was so important that people would do something to change lives, not just sitting down there, you know, in the scholars world, but to change our lives. That's what he wanted to see done.
Right.
You know,
Can I ask you to finish, because I have other people waiting?
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
thank you very
so-
much for your contribution.
Yeah, and one other thing, he also, you know, like black leadership of Richard Atkins Primary School, Richard, that was Julie Roberts at the time, you know, and how she was able to allow so many scholars, you know, African scholars to come into school and teach the children the truth from our perspective. So he said the story of the hunter is different from the hunting. So it's so important that we put forward our truth. So, you know, he recognized the community in the UK. So, you know, big up to all, you know.
Okay,
so anyway.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm going to move on to someone else. And can I ask Nubian Nugist Books to speak? Lejette, if you'd like to speak.
Okay, I'm here. Greetings, everyone. I've turned my camera on.
Yeah, could you put your camera on? Yes, thank you.
Greetings, everyone. When I got the sad news that Runoko Rashidi had passed, you know, done the transition, it was a bit of a shock. Just to say, my relationship with Dr. Runoko Rashidi is coming via his books. First and foremost, I'd like to say thank you very, very much to Robin Walker, because if it wasn't for Robin Walker, I would not have known about Runoko Rashidi. And because I studied as a student under Robin, this is how I met him. And my first, one of the first visits was to the British Museum. So that was awesome. And every time Runoko was here in the UK, I would always try my uttermost best in order to go to the tours and the lectures. Now, one of his last lectures, and we were together. Do you remember, Avril, when we got the new book?
Yes, I was there. Yes.
Yeah, The Black Image in Antiquity, Beautiful, Royal and Divine. This was the actual lecture that he had. That was his last lecture. And this lecture was in Peckham, down in Peckham, in this shop. I can't remember the name now. And the lecture was so good. I mean, literally no one wanted to go home. Then Runoko asked Word Power, that is Uncle Emmanuel, and to say, can we have another session? And he was just so relaxed. And one of the great things that Runoko said so many things, but one of the great things that really touched my heart was when he said he would love to come to United Kingdom and stay here for 1 year and do as much research as possible. So that was very awesome. One of the things that I had done, one of the first visits to the museum, I actually contacted Runoko and I said to him, but you know, Brother Runoko, I've never seen your books here. How do I get in contact? And he gave me the address and I got in contact with the Books of Africa. And ever since then, I have had a wonderful, a beautiful relationship with Nigel Watts, who is one of the editing directors of Books of Africa. He's actually online because I didn't know about this emergency tribute. However, in saying so, it's been a great pleasure in actually selling all of Runoko Rashidi's books. And also we have a press conference, a press release for Dr. Runoko. However, that would have to be done at another time. So just to say, thank you, Avril Walks and Talks, for giving me this few minutes to give a mini contribution to Dr. Runoko Rashidi. And one of the things I will be doing is continue in selling his books and making his name known and his works. So family, try your best to get his books because it's absolutely esteemed. And this particular book, the last book, to have all those pictures in there, if he had to go to other people, he would have had to pay lots of money per picture. So we have to give honor and we contribute, give this tribute to him as we're doing now, and to say that now he is one of our ancestors. that he will just look over us and guide us to continue his great works. Family, over and out.
Thank you very much, Lejette. That's very nice what you just said. Very moving. I'm going to
I'm almost in tears, so I'm going to.
Yes, so am I.
Yeah, sorry. Excuse me, family.
I'm going to ask Yvonne if she'd like to say something, because she's had her hand up for quite some time. Yvonne, if you'd like to put your camera on and say what you'd like to say. Yvonne's iPhone.
Hello, I hope you can see me.
No, we can't see you at all. It's totally dark.
Is it very dark? I'm sorry about that. I'm in a studio at work, and the light is low. Okay. Sorry about that. It's not very light. I'll be brief. Yeah, I'll be brief. I mean, I'm listening to everybody else, and I'm just going to reiterate to say, obviously, it's a great, sad loss. I came across Runoko Rashidi through a friend of mine. She was the person who introduced me more to study, to go deep into Black history. That was somebody called Pauline Lewis. She introduced me to Robin Walker, and via Robin Walker, I remember got introduced to Dr. Runoko Rashidi. And I remember it was really interesting because she told me that he was coming over to the UK. I didn't know much about the deeper level of Black history beforehand. And she said, oh, his tickets are on Eventbrite. So I was searching Eventbrite. I remember doing this for ages and I couldn't quite spell his name. And I was saying, who, how to spell the name, blah, blah, blah. And then eventually Runoko wrote back to me when I got the spelling right and invited me to one of his sessions. And I got fond memories of seeing him at TSCP in Croydon, where he's, again, a really wonderfully approachable person. His webinars were so engaging. You just sat there and you just felt like you were immersed in the experience that he went through. He just wanted to give and share his, what he knew. And it was just, so I was like everybody on the seminar tonight, just devastated to hear his loss. And weirdly, my mind just ran on him a couple of weeks beforehand. Obviously, I want to think about his greatness in that he left a fantastic legacy for all of us. To continue and offer my condolences to his loved ones. Thank you very much for hearing me for a few minutes.
Oh, thank you, Yvonne. That's very, very lovely and very, very moving. Thank you very much. Okay, if you could put yourself on mute, that'd be great. Now, is there anyone else, because we will be closing the session, but if anyone would like to come on to say something, please let me know. In the meantime, I'd like to thank all of those who took part in tonight's event. It's clearly an emotional night, but we know that the work that Runoko has left behind is just a stepping stone for us to move forward. We can't let the work that he created go to waste. We need to study his work more than ever and ensure that we teach our children as much of our history as possible using the information he left behind. Oh, I just realized my camera's not on. We have somebody's hand is up. Ja, if you'd like to unmute and finish off for me, please. Prophet Ja. Okay, I think he might have put his hand up by accident.
Sorry. Oh, so I'm driving. I'm okay. What the Empress just said a while ago about him giving, that was something very important, because when we done tours, and we made some money that you can continue with research. But he said, Jabi, what we're gonna do, we're gonna give something back to the community. So what we did, we hired halls and we gave back free presentations back to the community. That's the type of man he was, He wanted to give back to the community.
You're breaking up, Ja. Ja, can I say you're breaking up? I don't know if it's where you're driving, but you're breaking up. We can't actually hear what you're saying. I'm going to put you on mute simply because we cannot hear you at all. Okay, I think we're going to finish it there, people. And I'd like to send my condolences and love to Runoko's family and friends. And it's good to know that he served his time on Earth, and now he's one of the great stars in the sky. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you and good night.